You will sit with your father's family. Lambert Haverford said too loudly for a private correction. Lydia Denham did not answer him. Before her 6-year-old son could obey, she closed one hand over the boy's velvet shoulder and held him beside her on the flower-dressed terrace. Her daughter caught Lydia's free hand at once. Haverford pointed toward the row reserved for the children's paternal kin. They belong with the Denhams, Lydia. It is what my late brother would have required. 20 guests were close enough to hear. Lydia read the terrace in a glance. If she matched Haverford's volume, he could call her ungovernable. If she yielded, he gained a public example of the children being ordered away from her. She kept her hand on her son's shoulder. Carriage wheels ground over the gravel behind them. A dark coach stopped at the foot of the terrace. Fitzwilliam, Duke of Foxmere, stepped down and took only 3 strides before he stopped. The boy had turned at the sound. His sister turned with him. Fitzwilliam looked from one child to the other and crouched without touching either. The twins edged nearer out of curiosity, one on each side of him, while Lydia remained directly behind them, within reach. Half the terrace stared. The twins had Fitzwilliam's black curls, his grey-green eyes the same sharply marked brows. Lydia knew the likeness had a simple family explanation. Her late husband had been Fitzwilliam's maternal cousin. Haverford did not need a simple explanation. He needed a scandal. Fitzwilliam rose. He did not ask whose children they were. He looked at Haverford. "Lower your voice." Haverford stiffened. "Your Grace, this is a family matter. The children must learn proper respect." "Then we may begin with the respect due to an answer." Fitzwilliam crouched again, hands loosely clasped behind his back. "Where do you wish to sit?" The boy looked at Lydia. "With my mother." "Then that is where you shall sit." Haverford's mouth tightened. "A child cannot decide questions of family propriety. Seating is not guardianship," Fitzwilliam said. "The wedding breakfast will accommodate his preference." Lydia only inclined her head. The choice had been her son's. Haverford lowered his voice at last. "They have a remarkable Foxmere face, Your Grace. The county will ask questions." Lydia rejected every public answer. Defending her virtue here would turn the children into exhibits. "Resemblance is not testimony," Fitzwilliam said. "If you have a claim concerning the children, put it in writing. It will not be tried on wedding steps." Haverford tapped his coat. The edge of a folded, sealed petition showed above the pocket. "Already prepared." The local victory vanished into a larger problem. For the first time, Fitzwilliam looked directly at Lydia. She gave him only what he had earned. "Their father was your maternal cousin, Your Grace. Anything further may wait until it can be said without an audience." A small pause. "Agreed." He gestured toward the terrace doors. Haverford had to move aside. The musicians resumed. Lydia sat with one child on either side. Haverford had failed to separate them in public, but the petition remained in his coat, waiting for a quieter room. 2 hours later, the wedding breakfast ended. Fitzwilliam's uncle and his new bride departed beneath a shower of petals and good wishes. The remaining guests began to disperse through the great hall. Fitzwilliam found Lydia near the staircase. "The South Dower House is empty," he said. "My carriage can take you and the children there if you wish to remain on the estate while this is examined. It has its own servants' entrance and garden. Your lessons in the village need not stop." Lydia studied him. Leaving at once would look like flight. Remaining in the main house would leave the twins under the eyes of every servant and relation who had seen the terrace. The Dower House solved both problems unless the offer carried a claim of its own. "I have paying pupils," she said. "I shall keep them, of course, and Mr. Haverford in the guest wing until the matter is settled. His magistracy did not give him power to award anyone's children, and Lydia knew it. His real influence lay elsewhere. He was one of the family trustees whose concurrence and estate support Haverford expected before carrying a petition to Chancery. That made Fitzwilliam useful. It also made carelessness from him dangerous. "He is not to approach the dower house," Lydia said. "He is not to speak to the twins privately. I will accept temporary shelter while you examine the petition, Your Grace, but not on terms that make my children or my movements yours to order." Fitzwilliam's expression altered by almost nothing. "I have no interest in purchasing gratitude, but I cannot test a petition if I am forbidden to question every person named in it. You may question his witnesses. Access to my children requires my approval, each time." He reached into his coat, took out an iron key, and placed it on the table between them, rather than pressing it into her hand. "Agreed. The first affidavit will be in the library at 3 if you mean to examine it with me." Lydia picked up the key herself. "Then we begin at 3. At 3 o'clock, Lydia entered the library and found 2 handwritten sheets waiting on the mahogany desk. "Haverford's first affidavit," Fitzwilliam said. "Sworn by Thomas Corby, a neighbour of your late husband. Corby says that after your widowhood you became ungoverned in temper and removed the children from their grandfather's house in violent agitation on the evening of the 12th of October. Lydia almost smiled at the phrasing. "Corby owes money to my late husband's estate. Haverford can press the debt whenever he chooses, and ungoverned in temper is Haverford's preferred way of making resistance sound like illness." Fitzwilliam took up a pencil. "A motive may explain a lie. It does not prove one. He is lying because Haverford required him to. Perhaps. Let us see whether the date survives." He opened the estate visitor book beside a posting schedule. Corby had left for London before the 12th and had not returned to the district until the 14th. Fitzwilliam drew one line beneath the date. He could not have witnessed what he swore he witnessed. Lydia looked from the record to him. She had found the pressure behind the statement. He had found the place where the statement broke. "Your calendar has won the first round," she said. "It is not my calendar. That makes the victory even less charming." A muscle moved near his mouth. He turned the sheet over. "Who comes next?" "John Sterling, the grandfather's steward. And why will he lie? He will not exactly. He will agree with the last powerful man he can see." Fitzwilliam set down the pencil. "That is a remarkably inconvenient species of honesty. It is common enough. Tomorrow, then, we shall discover whether your social weather is evidence or decoration." Lydia rose. "Do try not to look disappointed if it rains." The next morning, John Sterling was shown into the library. Fitzwilliam had left the corridor door open so Haverford could not later complain that a household witness had been shut away. Unfortunately, Haverford's servant had stationed himself beyond it. Sterling noticed him at once. Fitzwilliam asked about Lydia's household accounts. Sterling glanced toward the corridor. "They were somewhat confused, Your Grace. Mr. Haverford has remarked upon it." Lydia watched his hands. His fingers tightened whenever the servant shifted. He was answering the report he expected to be carried upstairs. She stood, dragged Sterling's oak chair 3 feet to the left, and turned it toward the window. "The light better there." Fitzwilliam looked from her to the chair. "Is it immeasurably?" She left the corridor door open, but went herself into the adjoining morning room. "You have your witness, Your Grace. I shall not improve him further." From the next room she heard Fitzwilliam ask, "Were Mrs. Denham's accounts confused, Mr. Sterling, or kept in a separate ledger?" A pause. "A separate ledger, Your Grace. Her arithmetic was always sound." When Sterling had gone, Lydia returned. Fitzwilliam had aligned his pencils beside the affidavit. "You rearranged my witness. I rearranged his fear. You changed the conditions. Then write it down." "I already have." He had noted the chair before recording the changed answer. That pleased her more than agreement would have. Sterling's answer forced them back to the chronology. He remembered a dinner after which Haverford first demanded that the twins spend nights with their grandfather's household. Lydia was certain it had been on the 13th. Fitzwilliam found a posting entry proving a guest present at the dinner had not arrived until the 14th. The 14th. Lydia conceded. A correct motive cannot repair an incorrect date. No, but the corrected date gives me something else. Haverford made his demand the morning after that dinner because he had been excluded from a family discussion about the children's allowance. He was reacting to loss of influence. Fitzwilliam considered it, then nodded. Your inference is stronger on the 14th. I shall try not to become vain. I recommend against it. We have several affidavits left. By the end of the week, they had built a chronology neither could have made alone. Lydia learned the sound of his pencil stopping when a claim interested him. Fitzwilliam began asking before dismissing a phrase. Who was meant to hear this? Their rivalry had become useful. Worse, Lydia had begun to enjoy it. By the second week, a pattern had formed. Lydia went into the village each morning for paying lessons. In the afternoons, Fitzwilliam crossed the wet lawn to the dower house with papers under his arm. They worked until the twins' music hour interrupted them. One rainy Tuesday, he arrived early. Lydia sat on the pianoforte bench between the children. A walnut metronome ticked on the instrument. Her daughter, the quieter twin, was trying to fit a simple scale beneath its steady beat and missing by a fraction. She is anticipating the click, Fitzwilliam said from the doorway. Count the space. 1, 2, 3, 4. He began the count himself. The girl's shoulders rose. Her eyes left the keys and fixed on him. Lydia stopped the brass pendulum with one finger. Slower or without it? She asked. Slower. Lydia adjusted the weight. Then she looked at Fitzwilliam. Your task is to turn pages. Nothing else. Nothing else. He accepted the post with judicial gravity. The girl began again. At the final line, she glanced at her brother and deliberately raced through the last measure. Fitzwilliam looked at her, then at the metronome. That tempo was entirely unauthorized. She hid her laugh against Lydia's arm. He did not correct her. He simply turned the page. That caught Lydia. His exactness could bend without becoming false. As the girl began the next exercise, one ivory key remained stubbornly depressed. Fitzwilliam reached toward it. Lydia caught his sleeve. Do not cross-examine the pianoforte. I was going to inspect it. It catches in damp weather, I know. She eased the key upward and pressed it twice. It rose cleanly. Her son announced, Mama wins again. I was not aware we were scoring defects in furniture. Fitzwilliam said, We are now. The children laughed, and he accepted the new rule with a look of grave injury. A week later, her son tested the discovery. A pupil was due from the village, and the twins had to finish their scales first. The boy played C major correctly until the descent when he struck F sharp. Incorrect, Fitzwilliam said from his chair. The boy did it again and looked at him. He is testing your method, Lydia said. A method improves when tested. I wager he will defy you. If he plays it correctly under your instruction, I shall arrange your affidavit papers however you like. If he does not, you turn pages for my pupil. What constitutes defiance? The child may decide. Naturally. Fitzwilliam explained the scale with perfect clarity. Down again. The boy played C-B-A-G, then E-flat. Lydia laughed. Fitzwilliam stared at the keys. That is now arithmetically suspicious. It was not even the same wrong note. You lost. The judge was corrupt. The judge is 6. 10 minutes later, the Duke of Foxmere was turning pages for a beginner's sonata. Halfway through, he caught Lydia looking at him with such dry resignation that she had to lower her eyes. When the pupil's mother came to collect her daughter, she hesitated at the sight of a duke standing beside a beginner's music. Fitzwilliam did not turn the moment into a favor bestowed by rank. He stepped back, bowed to Lydia as though she were plainly the authority in the room, and asked the child whether she had marked the troublesome passage for next week. Lydia watched the mother's uncertainty settle into ordinary courtesy. It was a small thing. That was precisely why it mattered. Fitzwilliam could enter her work without making it about his presence. The legal work no longer explained why she listened for his step on the gravel.
He asked whether I could place her and the children at a side table, away from the principal family.
By the 5th week, Fitzwilliam's uncle had returned with his new bride for a short visit. Lydia invited him to the dower house for music. The twins performed a duet that separated badly in the middle and found itself again before the final chord. Their great-uncle applauded as if they had played for the king. Lydia laughed, but watched him. Whenever conversation neared Haverford or the wedding gossip, he escaped into Weathersheep or the North Road. Her old habit rose, preserve the pleasant room, now learn the truth later. Fitzwilliam spared her the maneuver. After the children went upstairs, he handed his uncle a glass of port. "What did Haverford ask of you before the wedding?" The older man coughed. "I do not know what you mean." Lydia could have rescued him from embarrassment. She did not. "He is evading because he pities me. Haverford's carriage was seen on the North Road 3 days before the ceremony. I knew he had been pressing you. I did not know the request." His uncle sighed. He asked whether I could place Lydia and the children at a side table away from the principal family. He said it would prevent confusion about the twins' parentage. Fitzwilliam's expression went still. So the seating was planned. He meant the arrangement to do work for him before the petition was ever shown. Lydia met his gaze. She had given him motive and audience. He had turned them into sequence and consequence. His uncle finished his port. "I refused him." "That is useful," Fitzwilliam said. When Fitzwilliam left later, he closed the metronome's little lid almost absently, as if the room had already acquired habits around him. Lydia watched the door after he had gone. The next afternoon, a messenger brought a fresh affidavit requesting a supervised interview with the twins. Lydia read the new paper twice. It asked for 15 minutes with the children in the music room, with Fitzwilliam present. Haverford claimed only the reasonable interest of their father's brother. "Do not permit it," Lydia said. Fitzwilliam read again. "It is regular in form. That is why it is dangerous. He makes commands sound like choices, and refusal sound cruel. He will frighten them without saying anything. An affidavit can easily condemn." Fitzwilliam straightened the paper against the table. "If I refuse every properly drawn request before testing it, he will say I decided the matter before hearing him and carry that complaint to Chancery. I am not offering a fancy. I am telling you what he does. I shall be 3 feet away. If a question becomes improper, I shall stop it." The paper still weighed more with him than her warning. He signed. Haverford arrived 10 minutes later. The twins sat together on the sofa. Lydia stood beside the pianoforte and set the walnut metronome going because its familiar tick gave them something ordinary to hear. Haverford smiled at the boy. "Your father would have wanted you brought up in a proper Denham household. Horses, tutors, a house suited to his son." The boy stared at his boots. A proper Denham son would wish to live with his father's family, would he not? "You would not be selfish enough to keep your mother in a borrowed house forever. If you came with me, she might be free to make another life." The metronome gave one uneven click and stopped. Lydia's son went rigid. His sister seized his sleeve. No one had shouted. That was the point. Lydia crossed the room and crouched before them. "Look at me. Nothing you choose for yourself can imprison me. Do you understand?" Her son's lips parted, but no sound came.
"I admitted the interview. It frightened him. The permission is withdrawn."
Fitzwilliam stood. "The interview is concluded." Haverford blinked. "The boy has not answered. He will not be required to." "You authorized this." "I did." "Then ending it proves your partiality." Fitzwilliam walked to the writing table, took up the permission, and drew one clean line through his signature. Beneath it, he wrote the date. "I admitted the interview," he said. It frightened him. "The permission is withdrawn." Haverford's smile disappeared. There will be no further access to these children without Mrs. Denham's approval. You are allowing a widow to dictate the inquiry. I am correcting an order that proved harmful. Lydia took the twins from the room. She stayed with them in the kitchen until her son's breathing eased. She did not praise him for courage. He had not failed a test. When she returned, Fitzwilliam stood by the rain-streaked window. The crossed permission lay between them. "You were correct," he said. "I believed supervision would make the interview safe. I gave more weight to the form of his request than to your knowledge of the man who made it." No excuse followed. Her anger did not disappear, but it changed shape. "Yesterday I let you believe the baker was my only source about your uncle." Fitzwilliam looked at her. "He was not. Your uncle sent me a note before the wedding saying Haverford had tried to enlist him. I did not know the exact request. I kept the note from you because I wanted you to reach your conclusions without believing I had arranged every road toward them. Why? Because I know how to manage rooms. I did not know whether I could tell a duke what I knew without having it treated as strategy instead of truth." Fitzwilliam did not come nearer. "Then we have both been selecting what the other is allowed to see. Yes, I shall show you any permission or legal step that touches the children. You will tell me when courtesy is doing work the paper does not show. You make trust sound like a ledger. Ledgers improve when the columns are accurate." That almost made her laugh. The next day, Fitzwilliam brought word that Haverford was preparing to send the petition onward. Lydia could keep gathering allies and managing every relative. The thought exhausted her. Fitzwilliam told her plainly what he could do. He could test the affidavits confront. Haverford refuse Foxmere estate support for a defective petition and have the solicitor put available protections under the settlement into proper form. He could not stop gossip or forbid Haverford from petitioning Chancery with his own money. For once, Lydia did not prepare an easy refusal before asking. "I want you to take it. The legal confrontation. All of it. I will not argue my virtue before the family, and I will not have the twins used to prove whom they love. If I take that part, his insinuation may still be spoken. I know. I have conditions. You will not compel the twins to testify. You will not discuss their paternity before a family audience, as though their faces were an offense. You will not decide where I live when this is over, and none of this creates any claim upon courtship. I accept every condition." Lydia folded her hands so she would not rearrange the room instead of finishing. "I want you to do this because I trust you." The words landed without polish. Fitzwilliam did not touch her. "Then I shall do the part you have given me." A small knock sounded. Lydia's daughter appeared to complain that her brother had altered the metronome and now claimed it belonged to him. The seriousness broke. Lydia laughed. In the music room, Fitzwilliam reached toward the brass weight, then stopped. "Who set the tempo?" "I did," the girl said. "Then I shall risk it." Lydia made room for one short piece. He took the chair beside the pianoforte and stayed. The twins played. No one corrected the first wrong note. The final chord had barely died when wheels sounded outside, and a servant brought a sealed notice from the main house. Haverford had summoned a family meeting for the following morning. He meant to present the petition and clarify the Duke's interest in the Denham children. Lydia's mind began at once who must be reassured, who would repeat a denial, who should sit beside whom. She stopped. Then she placed the notice in Fitzwilliam's hand. "This is the part I gave you." The family drawing room was full by 10 the next morning. Haverford stood with his affidavits in hand. Lydia sat where she could see the door and hated that she had already counted which relatives might be persuaded. "The children's welfare is at stake." Haverford began. "The county has observed an extraordinary likeness. It is reasonable to ask whether the Duke can be impartial where Mrs. Denham and these children are concerned." Faces turned toward Lydia. She almost answered them one by one. Fitzwilliam rose. "We will not try an insinuation before a family audience. You have prepared a guardianship petition. That is what will be examined. The family has a right to know why the children bear your face. The family may possess curiosity. It does not make curiosity evidence. He indicated the private library. Lydia crossed the room and placed the petition in his hand. This is the part I gave you. At the library door, Haverford demanded that the twins be brought down and asked, before witnesses, whether they preferred their father's relations. Lydia said nothing. She watched Fitzwilliam. No, he said. You admitted such an interview before. I did. I observed the result. I withdrew the permission. I shall not repeat an error, because you have written the request more neatly. Haverford said the papers would leave for London within 72 hours. Then tomorrow morning, Fitzwilliam replied, we shall examine what you have actually sworn. The solicitor will attend. Lydia returned to the dower house and kept the twins' music hour. The next morning she sat in the small morning room adjoining the library. The connecting door stood open. Fitzwilliam had told her she might listen as the children's mother, but he would not require her to argue her virtue or answer questions about their faces. For once, she let that arrangement stand. Fitzwilliam began with the date. You say Mrs. Denham removed the children in an ungoverned state on the 12th of October. Corby swore he saw it. A minor error in recollection, Haverford said. Corby was in London. A clerical error, then. A false date in a sworn statement is not clerical. Were you present yourself? A pause. No. The questions moved to Sterling's account and the separate household ledger. Each claim became smaller when forced beside a date, a place, or a witness.
A date may be wrong and the county may still believe me. I need not persuade a judge of what every drawing room can see.
At last Haverford pushed the affidavit aside. You mistake the nature of this Foxmere. A date may be wrong, and the county may still believe me. I need not persuade a judge of what every drawing room can see. Lydia's hands tightened in her lap. Fitzwilliam's voice remained level. Then say plainly what you mean. Haverford hesitated. You mean to use the children's resemblance to suggest misconduct whether you can prove misconduct or not. I mean that society is not a court of law. No. Which is precisely why your petition cannot be allowed to borrow the authority of one. Haverford leaned toward the desk. You can win every date in that book and still leave her unwelcome in half the houses between here and London. For the first time, the threat stood naked. Not guardianship, not concern, but reputation used as a leash. Fitzwilliam did not rise. Thank you, he said. Haverford frowned. You have just separated your purpose from your petition. The solicitor will record that distinction. Paper moved in the library. Haverford's voice sharpened. Do not be absurd. I am being exact. Your first witness swore to an event he could not have seen. Your second altered his account when removed from your servant's sight. My uncle will testify that before the wedding you attempted to isolate Mrs. Denham and the children from the principal family, and I will testify that under a permission I myself granted you told a 6-year-old that remaining with his mother made him selfish. You admit your partiality. I admit my error. I corrected it. Fitzwilliam paused. If you send the petition to Chancery, Foxmere will not support it. These contradictions will accompany any account I am asked to give. So will what you have said in this room that the object you hope to achieve by legal paper is social exclusion. A longer silence followed. Haverford tried one last turn. The county has eyes, Foxmere. Those children look like you. If you destroy my petition, everyone will say you protect your own bastards. Resemblance gives you no standing to remove a child from his mother. Their father acknowledged both children openly. You have produced no contrary fact. Fitzwilliam called his uncle in for 3 questions. Had Haverford asked before the wedding that Lydia and the twins be seated away from the principal family? Yes. Had Lydia's late husband acknowledged the twins throughout his life? Yes. Was the resemblance inexplicable within the family? None. Their father had been Fitzwilliam's maternal cousin. The same dark hair, pale eyes, and marked brows appeared through that branch. His uncle was dismissed. No one called resemblance proof. That was the point. Haverford said, "And if I refuse to withdraw, then you may carry your petition to London with your own funds and your own name upon it. You will not carry mine, my estate's support, or a false appearance of family agreement. And if I am called upon, I shall answer every question with the same facts I have put before you today." Lydia heard the solicitor clear his throat. "There is also the matter," the man said, "that persistence after today's contradictions may expose Mr. Haverford to costs if the Lord Chancellor's officers consider the petition vexatious. I cannot predict the result, but neither should Mr. Haverford pretend there is no risk." Haverford's answer came slowly. "What do you require for withdrawal?" By noon he had signed it, along with an undertaking not to approach the children without Lydia's consent under powers already contained in the family settlement. The solicitor also put Lydia's right to occupy the dower house, the children's maintenance, and the management of their daily care into proper written form. Lydia read every line. She struck one unnecessary phrase that would have required notice to the main house before taking the children away overnight. Fitzwilliam did not object. At the door, Haverford said, "The county will still talk." Fitzwilliam blotted the last signature. "The legal record is not required to imitate the county." Haverford left. Lydia heard his carriage on the gravel. The sound was not what made her safe. The papers were. So was the knowledge that Fitzwilliam had used the authority she gave him and stopped exactly where she told him to stop. When Lydia crossed the main drawing room on her way back to the children, several relations were still waiting there. Conversation thinned and stopped. She did not explain herself. Fitzwilliam did not take her arm or turn the passage into a triumph. He remained a pace behind. One of the women who had stared longest at the twins on the wedding terrace rose from a chair near the doorway and stepped aside. Another relative lowered his eyes. No one asked Lydia, whose face her children carried. The path through the room remained clear. That evening, Fitzwilliam came to the dower house music room. The twins were upstairs. The metronome was closed. "It is finished," he said. "The settlement stands whether you remain here, leave tomorrow, receive me as a neighbor, or never receive me privately again." Lydia looked at the chair he had occupied through 5 weeks of arguments. Fitzwilliam continued with the maddening calm of a man reporting the final line of an account. "I am expected in London before the end of the week. There are matters I have neglected here long enough. I shall leave on Thursday." There it was, not rejection, not invitation, merely a fact placed carefully between them. Lydia's old instinct offered the elegant answer at once. Wish him a safe journey. Preserve the dignity of the room. Let silence make the choice she was afraid to make aloud. If she did that, he would go believing she wanted precisely the distance he had promised her. For once, managing the room would cost her what she wanted. She crossed to the chair and dragged it beside the pianoforte bench. Fitzwilliam watched her. "The legal matter is finished," Lydia said. "But if you leave now, who is going to object to my tempo?" A flicker of surprise crossed his face. "Is this an invitation to return as your magistrate?" "No. As a trustee, no." "Then I ought to be precise. You generally are. What are you asking Lydia?" The use of her name stripped away the last useful piece of ceremony. She stepped close enough to take his lapel lightly between her fingers. "Come tomorrow. As a man, I am willing to court. Go to London on Thursday if your duties require it. Return when you can. I am not asking you to abandon your life. And the cross-examination? Only when you become tedious. I see little protection in those terms. You accepted worse yesterday." She kissed him first. For one surprised beat, he did nothing. Then his hand came gently to her waist, and he answered the kiss, warm and restrained, and entirely separate from every paper he had signed for her. When she drew back, He looked as if a new fact had entered the record. "Tomorrow?" he asked. "At 4. The twins have a scales at past. An alarming beginning to courtship. You may turn pages." 6 months later, Lydia's last village pupil had left the main house music room half an hour before. Her lesson book lay closed on the pianoforte, still filled with names and small sums earned by her own work. The dower house remained hers to use, and she still kept 2 mornings each week there because the children liked its garden, and because she liked knowing she could. Fitzwilliam's duties had taken him to London more than once during their courtship, and he had returned without making absence a test or presence a claim. Their future had not narrowed when she chose him. It had become larger by choice. The twins were attempting a 4-hand piece. Fitzwilliam, now her publicly acknowledged fiancé, stood near the window while the walnut metronome ticked. "The 3rd measure is dragging," he said. 1, 2, 3, 4. You are missing the space between the notes." The boy rolled his eyes at his sister and accelerated deliberately. Fitzwilliam sighed. "That is an auditory disaster." Lydia moved the brass weight 1 notch faster. "You cannot alter the rule merely because they are breaking it." "I just did." Both children chose the faster tempo and demanded that Fitzwilliam keep count. He did. The piece survived and ended in laughter. Her son pointed to the empty chair beside Lydia. "Where are you sitting for the next one?" For a moment, Lydia remembered the wedding terrace, a row of chairs used as a threat, and a frightened boy being told where he belonged. Fitzwilliam looked at the chair. "It is not mine unless someone wants me in it." Lydia touched the wooden back. Her son dragged the chair the last few inches toward the pianoforte. His sister restarted the metronome before Fitzwilliam sat down. He opened his mouth to object to the tempo. Lydia began the next piece. This time the room did not need to obey the instrument in order to be safe. The end.